Hello, humans, and welcome to another episode of Gen X Gamer. Media went up. Doesn't look like the Intellivision Amico in several ways. Now, that doesn't mean that later on, right? Because remember, Tommy, when he first started, he wasn't doing any crowdfunding. But as far as I see it now, right, it doesn't look like the Intellivision Amico venture. Now, there's several interesting things here about this, guys. Number one, let's hear what this company is and what this company isn't. Remember, the Intellivision Amico was a company that was trying to manufacture gaming consoles, right? They wanted to be the manufacturer. But let's listen to John D explain what his company is.
Hello, home arcade community, and hello, retro gaming fans. My name is John Diamonin, and I'm the CEO of Media Went Up. Now, a lot of people don't know exactly what that is, and I'll give you a little bit of insight, but not everything. So, Media One Up, we're a company that focuses on retro gaming, home arcades, and helping other companies out in this category.
Okay, so based on that statement, I'm not going to play it all. Based on that statement, what that tells me, right, is that this is a consulting and marketing firm, right? Let me put my, college graduate hat here on, even though I'm in a different area of business than John, right? But I'm just, deducing from the words he said. He doesn't want to put his cards out on the table, but that's fine, right? This is just a review, right? This is just my opinion, guys. This is not financial advice of any kind, okay? Don't go opening, don't go open your own video game console out there and create your own Amico based on what I'm saying here. This is just an analysis on the situation that we know about Media One Up so far and what's being reported, right? So what kind of company is this? This kind of company, right? Or typically this kind of company. I'm not saying his does everything that I'm about to say, but I'm just going to give you an overview of what these kind of companies do, right? They do strategic business consulting, right? In this case, he's talking about, retro gaming and arcade machines. They do marketing services, right? And in this specific case, I think for him would be a more client-centric approach, right? And this is really a hallmark of these kind of companies because their focus is understanding their clients and their clients' needs, and they deliver tailored solutions, which John can do with his experience, right? Whatever you want to say about John, he's got a lot of experience in the business, let me tell you. And they can work on innovation and adaptability, for example. Let's say there's an existing company like Iconic Arcade, and they want to bring their brand up, right? They want to be a bigger force in the market, right? John could be somebody that could be there consulting, the industry trends, any advancements in technology that can offer them, an advantage in the market, if you will, right? And they have other potential areas of focus. It could be market research and analysis, brand development, in John D's case, not so much digital marketing, right? But, he can analyze performance metrics for other companies. I mean, he's been in the market himself, right? He comes from another company. And let me tell you, in this kind of situation, right? In this kind of situation where you have this kind of claim, and let's take our friend Rexer at his word, right? That there's been a cease and desist based on, design, right? It could be copyright. It could be any other intellectual property issue that you might have, right? It could be a patent, for example. Whatever that is, right? This is when I get called. Right, there's 2 phone calls that go out right away. One of them is to engage with your IP counsel, right? You should seek legal advice from a professional. And then you need to call an auditor to see what happened. Now, as an experienced auditor, I can tell you right away that even when the call is made, as soon as I get the call, I know that there's some quality assurance issues because potentially, allegedly, okay? I'm just giving you an example of what can happen. I'm not saying that this happened here because it's just an allegation that's not proven. So this is just for the purposes of you understanding what the process is, right? So even before starting, I already know that there's a quality assurance issue because you went all the way to production and you missed a key component. So something in the development, whether it was with an engineer, whether it was at the manufacturing level something went wrong. Now, this would not be John's responsibility. Right? That's not what Media One Up does. He's not manufacturing the consoles. So, but what that can trigger, right, in this kind of partnership, and let's go over it real quick. Yeah, Medion AG, Eldahome, and guys, I don't know how to pronounce these. English is my second language. Give me a break. I can't even say John's last name properly. That's why I say John D. Media One Up and Arcade PR. Now, I don't know how this deal is working. Let me tell you, maybe Arcade PR is taking care of Canada. And Media One Up is taking care of the marketing here. I don't know. Right? These are just suppositions. Eldahome, of course, is the manufacturer. Probably the one impressive thing that you need to know here is Medion AG. Right? This is not like Tommy Tallarico saying, "Oh, I have this person that I hired that has 100 years of experience, and he's sitting on this desk. And I have another person here." No. If you're claiming that Medion AG is part of the project, it has to be true, or they will sue the crap out of you. Right? This name on this, at least to me, right, that I'm engaged in business. And let me tell you, if we landed a partnership in some of the companies that I've worked at, not now because I'm a married man, but if somebody walked in and locked in Medion AG for a project, we're going to Vegas. Medion AG has a market cap of $627 million approximately. Right? So that's where the money's at. If you get Medion AG on board to fund your project, you don't need to ask for money from anybody else. But what they're going to ask is proof of concept. They're going to ask for several things. Now, if we believe the claim that there's been an intellectual property issue, let's just say, besides calling an professional auditor in business that has experience in this kind of thing, the first thing you got to do is take care of that issue. Because if the competency clause comes into a contract, and there usually is one, which halts funding until you can prove, right, that you're able to do something. Now, if this is the case, forget about tariffs. Forget about anything else. Everything else is peanuts compared to resolving this issue. Especially for a brand new startup, this is devastating, right? We don't know who dropped the ball. That's what I'd be called. I'd be called in there and say, who are we going to fire, right? If somebody clearly is not competent, you're not going to mess a deal up with Medion AG because you took the wrong blueprints. So I'm talking to engineers, I'm talking to designers. I'm saying what happened. Once you do, right, you have to make sure that the process is absolutely complete, because the insurance company is also going to be asking questions. Are you manufacturing to standard? Now, what standard could they be? It could be the ISO standard, right? Or it could be another standard, depending where they're making the product, right? But all the processes need to be evaluated, absolutely all of them. Now, with that said, well, what do you do? What do you do in that kind of situation where you need to mitigate a problem like this? Well, guys, there's several things you can do, and there's several things that you can't do. One of them is you can't be speaking on legal matters, which is really something that we can't ask John to do, because he's not manufacturing the product. He's not the one probably producing the items, right? If they have a problem, he's not putting the nuts and bolts in it. He's not the engineer going, "Hey, we're going to make it like this." It probably got a little too close, and that's where the concern is at. So, but he is part of marketing, right? So message discipline would be what he would have to do. There's other things that can happen, right? And when you're comparing it to the Amico, and you could do several things, but this market is large enough and proven enough, thanks to Arcade Went Up, that you could get venture capitalists on here. You don't necessarily have to go to the public, right? Even though, your largest investor, Medion, is asking for proof, right? Like, show me that people want this stuff, especially if you're going to sell, arcades of Street Fighter 2 again. that's reasonable, and they can release money based on those contracts at certain stages, right? But when the manufacturer himself, not John D, but when the manufacturer himself failed at a basic quality assurance function, you have to question the process, you have to audit it, and you have to fix the problem and move forward. Of course, that takes away capital from your initial offering, right? So it makes it harder. And again, this is, forget about the tariffs. Tariffs are the least of your problems right now if this is the case. Now, let's say, for the sake of argument, right, that they lose Medion AG. Well, let me tell you, there's other things you can do, especially in this realms. Of course, you could do a revenue share like the Intellivision Amico did, but it would be through private equity, or should be through private equity. Because if it's not, then it's going to fail. Convertible notes, right? You can do that via regulation. You could do strategic micro investments, like with stores and stuff like that. You could do, I don't know, direct to retail partnerships, with boutique store, electronic stores, stuff like that. There's a lot of ways that he could go. Right? What does John D have to do, right, as the CEO of the company? Well, number one, even though he's just a startup, right, and this is just me observing from the distance, guys, and I've said this before, he needs to introduce an advocate, right, a CMO, right? They can speak more openly than John D, a trusted third party, if you will, right? It could be a retro game developer, it could be a YouTuber, what have you, somebody he's paying that can bridge the gap. Right? And he also, so he needs to hire a team so they can do some type of developer diary, if you will, so he can show the progress of the project. But there needs to be clear communication. There must be discipline in the messaging, right? Because silence damages the perception, especially in pre-order projects, right, which are considered part crowdfunding. And then he needs to pivot away from the arcade one up, right? He needs to, if I would like to see something, I like to see, okay, well, can you show me your high-tech features, right? Can you lean more into the game licensing? What can we know about that? And instead of just marketing as an alternative to arcade one up, why not make it part luxury, entertainment furniture, if you will? Because that will give you access to markets where you actually have salespeople marketing these, right? Pushing them out the door. There's several things that he could do. But as of right now, I don't see the similarities with the Amico, other than, there's some pre-orders that got delayed due to an intellectual property, allegedly, okay, I don't know that to be the case. But John D wants to make amends with the community. He said that. Again, I have to give him the benefit of the doubt and go. I've criticized him. He's never said a bad word against me, as far as I'm concerned. And I want to see more products out there. I think the more competitors you have in the market, the better. But you have to let them get off the ground before you start crapping on the product. And yeah, maybe this product isn't for you, right? But I'm talking about the business proposition that he has. It's not the same as the Intellivision Amico. Could it be? Yeah, but now you have the Intellivision Amico experience, right? And you know what to look for and what not to look for. But as far as right now, I don't see any evidence that, other than pre-orders, and who doesn't take pre-orders, for that to be the case, right? I wish him the best of luck. I want Glenn to succeed. I want him to succeed. I want Arcade One Up to make better products, and that's really the whole deal of it. I'm not part of any community, by the way. I just make videos on what I like, right? And I like arcade machines. I can't have any more, right? That's why I get jealous when I see all these YouTubers with a bunch of machines in the back. I'm out of space. My wife wants me to sell games in order to put another cabinet in here, but I can't because I'm a game hoarder and I'm addicted, and it's just frustrating. The only thing that would make me start tearing things apart would be to get a Donkey Kong, right? A Donkey Kong machine. Whenever Rexer's on, I look at that Donkey Kong machine, man, and I'm so jealous. All right, guys, that's just my perspective. Right, that's just my perspective. I wish everybody the best. I want John to come back because selfish reasons. John has that thing that makes people go crazy. The shills start shilling, right? And that's a good thing, right? We've gotten so much great content from shilling. I still watch, a lot of creators, the Rexer Show, Moat, other channels that I watch. I still enjoy their content no matter what. And I hope it gets to be like that again, because without John D, guys, it's just been boring. It really has. And I wish things to get exciting again, if you will. But I think it's unfair to compare him to the Intellivision Amico. We're not even close to that yet. All right, humans, I will catch you on the next one. Take care.